What's happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and today we're going to do another Stalker video, but this time we're going to take a look at tanking. So similar to before, I've seen a lot of questions showing up regarding, what type of spec you should run for tanking, what type of stats, and figured I'd share you guys what I've been doing. As you can see, I'm level 34. At this point, I've successfully run through both of the starter dungeons and the first starting adventure. I didn't do the other adventures simply because it wasn't as good experience as I was getting out of quests. But regardless, I feel that I've done enough tanking at this point where I could put together a quick video, show you guys what I've done, what works, etc., etc. So looking into the build, go straight over to support, and you can see our first ability, Whiplash. Now this is going to be your basic tanking ability. Damage is relatively low, but as you can see, generates 125% threat, which is the most important thing in tanking. Threat is the most important thing, hands down. Moving on from there, our second ability, we have Preparation, and we also have it at Tier 4. Excellent ability to have. As you can see, it generates suit power force, and in addition gives us a empower and a defense with each tick, which will increase our critical hit chance and our deflect chance. And just as kind of a forewarning, deflect is pretty much what you're going for as a stalker. You do a lot of tanking through deflection and a little bit of lifesteal, mainly deflection, but preparation is a great skill for that. Now, I know this is a higher level ability, and since you can start tanking at 15 with adventures and really start tanking at 20 with dungeons, in lieu of not having preparation at those levels, I would suggest Nanofield. The healing you get out of it is relatively low. Despite that, healing is healing regardless, so until you get preparation, I would go for Nanofield. Personally, I haven't decided yet. I might actually end up switching back, but possibly at when I can get up to Tier 8, because I like the idea of the increased healing by 8% and 100% health on the second transfer, but I'll have to test it to see how viable it is. Anyway, onto our third ability, we have our Interrupt Armor. So for this one, we're going to have Collapse, another higher level ability, and really nice for tanking. It's going to grab all the foes, pull them together, and in addition, destroy the Interrupt Armor. Once again, another higher level ability, so at lower levels, you can go with either Stagger or False Retreat. Personally, until I got Collapse, I was using Stagger just because it was, right up front, stun the foes in addition to destroying Interrupt Armor. So on guys that don't have Interrupt Armor, stun is always a great thing to have, but False Retreat's another one you could use. It really comes down to, your choice. Personally, I think Stagger's going to go out faster. You don't have to do the double tap, but, whatever works for you. Onto our fourth ability, we have our main threat grab. So once again, another higher level ability running Razor Storm here. Great ability. As you can see, it applies an Intimidate, which will match the top of an NPC's threat list for 6 seconds. Until you pick up Razor Storm, you should be using Reaver. Reaver will give a taunt, which not only reduces damage to everyone else in your party from those monsters, but it forces them to attack you for the full duration. Personally, Razor Storm has a lot bigger AoE. I mean, it's a 30-second cooldown versus Reaver, which is a 20-second, 15, I believe. So, only half the duration of it, which is, pretty good for Reaver. At the same time, just to show you the radius on Razor Storm real fast, you can see that it's a pretty big telegraph here. So, I mean, that's a lot of area to grab stuff in, and I just feel like that really lets you pull stuff over to you a lot easier than Reaver did. Moving on to our fifth ability, we have Decimate. And Decimate really is, one of the centerpieces of tanking once you get it. Deals relatively low damage, but most importantly, it applies a Weaken to a foe, which will reduce the damage dealt by 10% for 10 seconds. Additionally, it's only usable after deflecting an attack, so this is kind of a proc-based ability. But like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of deflecting, so don't worry about that. It'll be coming up plenty. Moving on to our sixth ability, and this is where once you pick up Frenzy, that's when you really start to kind of come into your own as tanking. I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's 21 you get it, but as you can see, it deals 150% threat, and on top of that, there's a stealth bonus granting 325 absorb for 5 seconds. Obviously, that ends up scaling up as you get higher, so don't be like, oh, absorb's low. Trust me, it gets better. But yeah, great ability to have. I mean, you're generating a ton of threat. On top of that, when you have it tiered up a little bit, you can see landing a hit grants us a defense, increasing our deflect chance. So, we're going to get absorb, we're going to get a higher deflect chance. It's going to help us to proc Decimate. Great ability. Following that into our seventh ability, my seventh ability while tanking, I usually consider it a utility type thing. For now, I'm running Razor Disc just because the 10% reduction of armor, and I have 1 point in the tier, so it's 10.5, but that armor reduction, I find that to just help groups kill bosses faster. I mean, as far as I know, I don't think any other classes have armor reduction, so, it's great to bring to the table, and I think it really does add a good amount to DPS, but at the same time, this slot is rather situational. You know, if you find that you have a boss that's constantly critting you, you could go with nanovirus here to reduce the critical hit severity. If it's a high mobility fight, you could go for something like pounce, which will give you that good leap in addition to the swiftness. You know, you could put on another interrupt with, say, false retreat or stagger if you needed extra interrupt armor destruction. But for me, at least, I run the razor disc. I feel like, in general, I'll run with my guild, and I feel like they're competent enough to hit interrupts when they need to happen. So I'd rather, you know, increase the potential damage they can do. But like I said, it all comes down to the situation. Our 8th and final skill, and probably the centerpiece of any tank build as a Stalker, is Steadfast. Now, Steadfast is probably one of your best abilities. It's on a 10-second cooldown, and when you use it, you grant yourself a defense for 4 seconds or until the next time you deflect attack. Deflecting attack restores 20 suit power, and in addition, that defense increases your deflect chance by 45%, which is huge. In short, you want to be using Steadfast on cooldown, like every time it's up, put it back up. You know, it's going to be generating suit power for you. It's going to be getting you deflects to help prop your decimate. Overall, great ability. In regards to the other tanking abilities available, personally, I haven't really played around the amplification spike. I just don't see it having enough utility in low-level dungeons to being worth it. I mean, higher end in raids, maybe, but for now, at least, not a fan. Kind of the same thing with Nano Dart. I mean, it only hits one foe, siphons back 50% of the health. Doesn't really end up being enough health to make a difference. And another good one is Stim Drone. And Stim Drone's actually good. I've used it, but I found that the healing of it and the maximum health, I'd rather go with Preparation because, you know, we're getting 481 health here with 2 charges. Preparation, on the other hand, is going to heal us for 321 every 0.5 seconds over a 3-second channel, and then on top of that, it's going to give us the defense ticks, which are going to increase our deflect chance. So personally, I prefer Prep over Stim Drone, but you know, you could make a case for both. I'm looking briefly into the amps, and once again, I want to reinforce that, especially at lower levels, a lot of these higher tier amps are going to be really expensive. Like, you know, something like Last Stand is fantastic, and while I'd love to have Last Stand or, you know, Empowered Attack Mastery, a lot of this stuff is probably going on your commodity exchange for 20-30 gold per amp right now. So until it dies down, what you want to focus on is Strike Through, because, you know, if you're missing your threat generation moves, that's a huge issue. Support power, deflect chance, deflect critical hit chance, maximum shield capacity, and then lastly we have lifesteal. Of course, I do have 2 amps right now. I have Regeneration and Forbearance, both great abilities to have, but like I said, don't be majorly concerned with Tier 2 and Tier 3 amps this early in the game, just because, you know, it's not going to make or break your ability to tank, and at this point they're probably really expensive and you're better off saving your gold for other things. Looking briefly at the stats, it's kind of just a crossover. I mean, when we were doing DPS, we wanted to focus on Brutality and Finesse. With tanking, you want to focus on Tech and Insight. So, well, my Insight is quite high. Actually, no, I'm only at rank 1 with that. My Tech's pretty low right here compared to Brutality and Finesse. Obviously, I have a bunch of DPS gear, and I was collecting an alternate tank set, but after those first 2 dungeons, I basically stopped tanking just because the XP is kind of lackluster to what I'm getting compared to quests. But regardless, you're going to be leveling up Tech because you want the support power, so look for stats that, or excuse me, gear that have Tech on them. You want Insight because it's going to be deflect and deflect critical hit chance, and you want Grit because health is always good. So with that being said, that basically wraps up the basis of the tank build. One last important thing I want to point out is your Nano skin. If you're going to be tanking, switch it up to Evasive. As you can see, 10% more deflect chance, resistances by 10%, threat generation by 200%, and of course, the biggest thing, exiting stealth in combat reduces damage taken by 15% for 5 seconds. So with that in mind, and you'll see it obviously in a second, but I mean, it's huge. Basically, we stealth, we come out of stealth using Frenzy, and we're going to get an Absorb Shield, and then on top of that, we're getting damage reduction for 5 seconds. I mean, it's really a great combo, and you should basically be stealthing and using Frenzy on cooldown while tanking. It's, you know, because every time you're going to get that damage reduction that's going to come out, in addition to the Absorb Shield. You know, and a lot of people, I think, were confused about that. They had the idea that, like, you know, if I'm a tank and I go stealth, I'm going to drop threat. You won't drop threat going stealth. I mean, unless you use, like, a, you know, something like, what is it? Tactical Retreat, which is going to drop threat. Which, on that note, never use Tactical Retreat while you're a tank. I think I might have mentioned it earlier and said it's good for mobility. No, it's not. I take that back. Do not use it. It drops threat. But anyway, with that being said, we're going to jump into a dungeon real quick, show you guys a little bit of how it works, you know, kill some trash, kill a boss, and we'll take things from there. Alright guys, so here we are at the Ruins of Kel'Varath. This is one of the first dungeons that you unlock at level 20. And I gotta say, compared to like an intro dungeon in WoW, it's definitely much harder. So hopefully I can give you guys a good idea of what it's like to tank. So in general, your main rotation, Steadfast should be off pretty much off cooldown. Decimate, since it's a proc, you're going to use that whenever you get a chance. Frenzy is going to be your main power dump, especially doing it out of stealth. Like I said, you can see there's where the absorb bar would have come up if it didn't already tank a hit to begin with. And additionally, Razor Disc, we also use that pretty much on cooldown just to increase the party DPS. So another important thing to note is that as a tank, in general, you're going to set the pace of an instance as a tank. You know, obviously make sure that your group is able to move as fast as you are. But if you have like one guy, like that one DPS, who's just all like, oh, I'm fucking going in now, just going ham and pulling stuff, and you're not ready for it, let him die. Because, you know, what it really comes down to is you're the one who holds threat. You're the one that decides how fast the instance is going to move. And if someone's going to be a dick and just be like, oh no, I'm pulling, well, guess what? You have the ability to basically, you know, shut him down and be like, no, you're going to die, and I'm going to let you die, and then I'm going to laugh because you're dead. So real quick, we're just clearing through some trash here, and then we'll do the first boss. As you can see, so far pretty easy. All it's really taken is making sure everything stays grouped up. Try and turn the big mobs away from everybody else. And an important thing to note is the telegraphs. And I'm only saying this because tanking is quite different in this game versus a lot of games. And the best thing I can think of to compare it to is, I mean, like, if you played Final Fantasy XIV, for example, and you're aware of the Titan fight. In the Titan fight, you basically have to eat landslide to the face. You know, if you turn from the group, or if you turn, your body, like, turns so that you're facing the group's going to end up wiping. They're going to take a ton of damage. In this game, you need to avoid the telegraphs. In general, once the telegraph starts, the guy isn't going to turn and toss the telegraph in a different direction. So just be aware of that, because the last thing you want to do is take a big telegraph to the face. It's bad news bears. Alright, so now that guy's dead, we're on to the boss. So now we can actually like work into the rotation from here. Alright, so I like to stealth, get my frenzy right up at the start, get that interrupt armor, get the damage up, start generating some threat, get threat or steadfast up, get the razor disc out to increase the DPS of the group. Here comes his ability, we toss out our interrupts, and look at that. And I will say right now, I am with a guild group. I tried to do this video initially with a group of randoms, but despite telling them at the start, like, you know, all the DPS, please put on an interrupt, we have to interrupt this guy. Nobody seemed to understand that concept and listen, so what ended up happening is, you know, the boss didn't get interrupted right there, and he just decided to jump around and smash everybody's shit. Whereas with this group, you could see, and that's a big difference. Like running with an organized group versus a bunch of pugs, obviously that's going to be the case. Barely got out of that. Steadfast. Whew. No, he got my claws. Where are my claws at? There are my claws. So pick up all these little guys real fast. Got all of them taunted. Get steadfast up on them. Get the threat up even higher. We're going to turn this guy so he's not facing the boss. Or I mean, so the boss isn't facing everybody. Oh god. We took that one straight to the back. It's not good. Pull them all over. Oh god, no. Oh god, no. Preparation. Heal me up a pinch. Razor disc. Oh god, and he just jumped on 2 DPS and killed them. This is when shit gets real. They're not coming after me. Stay here with me. Oh, he's still going down. Oh, where are my claws at? Shit. Thought I had them on still. It's like such a nasty mechanic. Losing your claws really fucking sucks. Gotta collapse everything over to me. Oh my god, this guy's coming all over the place. Hey, and he goes down. Oh, look at those cool side blades. But yeah, so not the smoothest boss attempt by any means, with 2 of the party dying, but I mean, obviously that's all it really takes, you know. Make sure you keep an eye on where your healer's at, stay close enough that he can keep you topped off. Having preparation in place obviously managed us to get ourselves up when we got knocked away and we were a little bit out of the range of the heal. And that's all there really is to it. So, I mean, you know, make sure to hold thread, try and grab those ads, pick them all up, and that's all it really is for tanking. So, anyway, obviously there'll be some more in-depth tanking videos a little bit later on when we get to, you know, like endgame content and raids that you guys will really be able to see what tanking's like. But for now, this is Cowboy signing out. Thanks for coming by. We'll see you guys next time.